Today, we are in the presence of royalty, as one of the most wicked characters to come out of Scarowinds is here with us. The Witch on Haunt Culture. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Haunt Culture. I'm Leroy, and I'm joined by my wonderful friend Jenny.
Hello.
I've been wanting to get you on this show for a very long time. If you went to Scarowinds between 2014 to 16, you may know of the icon, the Witch.
Scarowinds! Your fears are
14, I was with the Overlord the year you kicked him out.
Well, we kind of co-hosted.
I don't know about that, because at the opening, he always had to be back at the South Gate.
That is true. That is true.
All by his lonesome. So we're going to talk about her years of haunt experience and all the great stories she has. So let's talk about how it all began with you and haunt.
Well, that's an interesting story.
Oh boy.
Because Scaredy Cat over here would never have gone to haunt to be scared. Not signing up for that. We had season passes, my husband, the kids, and we would walk around and we would see the skeletons being hung and the fountain turning red and all the props, and I'd be like, oh, and they would set up a counter of, you know, people signing up to be haunt actors, and Eddie and Beck were too young at the time, but, you know, Eddie talked about going to Scarowinds, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe another year, you know. My husband applied for an IT position, and we were going to the park that day, so we all went to the employment office. He went in for his interview, and it happened to be, you know, like September, and haunt was already going on, and they were hiring actors and auditioning. You know, he's in a room far, far away, and I'm sitting here with the kids, and obviously the kids are too young to work. So the lady behind the counter, she's like, are you here to audition for Scarowinds? And I was like, I know I don't look that hot today, but I don't think I look that bad. And she said, no, you've just been sitting here a while, and, you know, we're holding auditions. Do you want to try out? And I'm like, oh, And Eddie popped up and he goes, oh, my mother would never do that. She's scared of everything. And I'm like, oh, really now?
Ooh.
And a diva kicked in, and I'm like, I wonder what that is like to go on an audition. Why not? So I filled out the paperwork, and my husband comes out and he's like, you know, they don't even have a IT position, but they're talking about Scarowinds, and, you know, they want me to go back and talk to somebody. It's called an audition, honey. But he didn't know. So, you know, we left the kids here in the front waiting for us, and we went down this little hallway, and we sat in these chairs, and I look over, and there's a couple sitting there. One has, you know, piercings and long dreads and fangs, and his wife is sitting there and piercings and tattoos, and, you know, totally look the part. They go in and we hear the screams and the growls and the, you know, just all of this sound, and they come out with their thick papers of, oh, we're hired, that's great, can't wait to start. And then my husband goes in, and you could have heard crickets. There was no sound. No sound at all. And he comes out and he goes, I don't know, he came out with one piece of paper, and I'm like, I don't know, they kind of had like a lot of paper. So I go into the room, and I'm sitting there, and I don't remember his name, but he was British, and I'm British, so I'm like, okay, off to a good start. So they give you some tasks and some things to do, and I'm just like, why not do it all? Because, you know, you may never ever do another audition again. So I did. I was a chicken. I walked through cobwebs. I was covered in spiders, and flipped my glasses off, running around the room. And before I left, he said, have you got any other talents? And I said, well, I got a pretty good scream. So he asked me to scream, and I screamed, and he's like, you're hired. Here you go. It was only at that point I went, what did I just do? I had said there were a couple of places, do not put me with clowns, and I'm a vegetarian, don't put me in slaughterhouse. So my first night, where am I? Slaughterhouse. I learned, water park, we were there, and Matilda's where we got makeup, and we had the bathroom with the blood room that was, all dextered up with the plastic, and the guy with the super soaker. I got that treatment. I had just had a ripped shirt, but I thought I was just like, I have the best costume ever. You ripped up ratty shirt. I love that thing. My first night, I go there and it's dark and it's terrifying, and my manager was Robbie, and he was like, okay, follow me, I'm going to show you where the exits and the fire extinguishers, and I'm walking past slabs of meat and it smells like bacon, and the music, and I'm already like, I couldn't care less where the exits were. I couldn't care less where the fire is. I just like followed his back just to get through. And he's in the back and he's like, sign this so you know where everything is. I don't think I can do this. And he said, let me just show you where you'll be. In the original slaughterhouse, when you first walked in, you made like a small right, and there was a curtain. You go behind the curtain, and there was a wall with a cutout for your face and hands. And then behind us was a freezer room. Now, haunts are not air conditioned. So if you're going to be anywhere, you want to be near the freezer room. Because every time that opened, an actor came from the back to the front, then that's where you were. He said, look, I don't care if you quit tomorrow, but please just stay tonight. I'm like, okay, I'm in this little room. I don't have to interact with the muscly guys with the pig masks or anybody else. They're not going to come at me. It was great. And then I got my first scare, and I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I can do this. I wanted to take care of my cast members. I wanted to be part of the group. So I started baking cookies for everybody. And that got me the nickname Cookie Mama.
Cookie Mama.
So it was like, Cookie Mama's here, and it was just like, I would come to Central, and I'm like, oh, these kids are really young, and I'm just this old mom, and I would kind of sit separate from everybody until they noticed, and they were just like, no, come over here, you're one of us, and that's when I got a taste of what haunt culture was like. What Scarowinds was kind of all about, and the little dramas that go on. Freddie the Slaughterer broke up with me. How long you been going out? Since last Saturday. So that was really cool, and I was like, I did that for one season, and yeah, it kicked my butt. I was tired and worn out, and had to drive an hour home, but just kind of got a taste for it, and it was just really neat. That was how I got started with haunt. That was just a fluke, and something that I never thought would be in my vocabulary to do. That, the next year rolled around and I got my rehire letter, and I'm like, oh, this is the best. Oh my God, they want me back. They like me. They really like me. And I'm like, I can't wait to go back to Slaughterhouse. And then somebody turned around and said, you're going to be really disappointed. I'm like, what do you mean? And that was the year they shut down Slaughterhouse. So I'm like, oh my God, where are they going to put me?
Well, let's dive into all the characters you've played over the years.
Oh, all of my characters. After Slaughterhouse, being a victim in there, I got placed in Silver Scream. I got to be a vampire, so they gave me things, and they gave me a black dress with a shawl. I was in heaven. I always wanted fantasy vampire thing, wanted to do that. And I got partnered with Tim Scrots. Oh my gosh. It was a battle not to laugh all night with him. He was just so good. And we were in the crypts. It was just like fish in a barrel. It was a step up from what I did before, because I was in a room with other actors, and just learning the cues and the shadows and the sounds and ping-ponging off of each other. Tim was one of the best people to work with in that area. Number one, Tim would redo the whole room, and maintenance would come in and like, where did the blood come from on the candles, and where did that light come from, and why is this guy and nobody questioned, just like it's like, it looks great, yay. Just so amazing to work with. So that was my second year there, and I'm again thinking to myself, I never want to leave Silver Screen. I just want to do Silver Screen forever. The next year I hear that they're opening up London Terror. London Terror was total steampunk. It wasn't an indoor maze. This was outdoor area. I put on my resume somewhere or on my application that I can do a British accent because I was born in England. I'd be perfect for this spot. So I got placed in London Terror. Working in that area with the other actors and just trying to teach them some British colloquialisms and, you know, some speech. And finally I just lined everybody up on the wall and I'm like, after me, say oi! Oi! Amazing, amazing props, amazing set, amazing smoke and effects and costumes they did right. The makeup was on par, was great. They set us up for success. Just coming in, we had a working guillotine where you would drop it, the blade would come down, the head would get chopped off the mannequin and you go, oh, look over there, and then you pull a string and it would reset. It was just amazing. And the cast, everybody learned their rhythm, and when they did, everybody committed 100%. There was not one slacker in that area. And I got to be Millie Turner. Millie Turner was the hat maker of London, you know, and she had a hat on a hat on a hat. And Millie's story is that, you know, she wants models for her hats. So she'd go up to the pretty girls and she would say, oh, darling, aren't you gorgeous? Wouldn't you love to model my hats? And they go, oh, okay, okay. And I said, right, come over here to the guillotine and we're just going to lop off your head and stick it on, and then we'll put the hat on it. It looked lovely, darling. Come over to the guillotine and we do like a little thing. We choose a queen, little girl to say off with their heads and, you know, just get everybody chanting. And, you know, it's just, we get crowds, we get groups, and it was just amazing. We got Maze of the Year, Area of the Year
deserved.
that year. I got Mistress of Mayhem that year.
Mistress of Mayhem goes to
Jennifer Lippel. And that was a big prize because, you know, I'd sit there at awards going, oh, if only. But, you know, just my inner child got to play and it got recognized, and, you know, it was just fabulous. Everybody just loved it. I thought Millie was my epitome of everything that I would ever want to haunt, and it couldn't get any better. I remember that summer I was walking through with my kids coming to the park, and I ran into somebody in management, and they said, oh, so, you know, you coming back next? I said, oh yeah, try and keep me away. And they said, well, you know, where do you want to be? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'll be back in London, and they've got to give me my hats back, you know. I just want to be back in London. And they said, oh, okay. And it just struck me as funny that, you know, why are you asking, kind of? And then I had my 3-year stint as Lilith, and then when Lilith was turned to ashes, I came back as Millie. The story that I created was the witch actually possessed Millie, and then when the witch was gone, Millie came back. But instead of Millie Turner, there was a middle name added, and it was Millie Ree Turner.
Oh, that's
so
that's
Millie
clever.
returned, but she was a little
Returner.
darker and a little more twisted. And I had this little rabbit thing that was on the purse, and it had no eyes, but I'd stick my fingers in there and like move the mouth, and that was funny. And then the next year they opened Age of Darkness, medieval.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, what character are they gonna give me now? This is gonna be great. I'm gonna get a brand new character. It will be awesome. I kind of knew who to ask and what to say. I went up to somebody and I said, oh, see my costume. It's brilliant. You know, it's perfect for my character. And they turned around and said, yeah, the witch. And I'm like, the what? I'm a witch again? Okay, really? Yeah, but you're not that witch, you're a different witch. I'm like, which witch is the witch? You know, like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I was, again, a witch in this arena.
What is your character creating process like?
Inspiration from set, costume, whatever comes to mind. Just some of it is just spur of the moment. So Millie, she's a hatter. And the storyline was that the London fog had something in it that caused all of the characters to go really kind of loopy and crazy.
I like that.
So Millie had a very twisted idea of what selling hats and modeling hats, it was all about the hats. It was all about finding the perfect head. And having the guillotine there, they just went together, and having the Undertaker and the Butcher and the inspiration from your areas. Different Liliths had to change and morph each year. Because the first year I was presented as the Overlord at the opening, and that wasn't supposed to happen that way. When it was presented to us and me, the Overlord is still the Overlord. The Overlord is still doing the opening, but this witch character is going to possess him. We did this recording where you would hear my voice and he would start to act different. And then the other character would pop in. And so we had done the recording, we were doing some rehearsing, and the Overlord got pulled out of the room, and he came back in and he said, well, it's all you, kid. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he said, well, you're gonna be up on, I'm like, what? And part of you, it's the adrenaline of it, it's the learning of it, it's just the going through the motions of it, because there's so much to see and do and figure out with timing and props and, smoke blowing sticks and everything else, that you don't think about it until that first night when the world is in front of you and you're going, what did I sign myself up for? No! This is so far removed from my comfort zone, but I'd already committed, and it's like I have to do it. And first night was a disaster. There were a lot of concepts thrown away around for the character. The costume was really awesome. It was this huge prom dress looking thing. I had a crown, and they gave me this wig, but they didn't give me anything to attach the wig to my head. And that's covered with the Overlord's robe. And act like the Overlord. Now, I am not 6 foot something. I'm 5'7". So I had to go up the stairs to the stage and then stand on this little box so that I would gain height. There were 3 magnets on the front of the robe. In a puff of smoke, I had to disconnect the magnets, get the hood over the wig and the crown, hold my hands behind me, and somebody would rip the robe off of me from behind. Opening night, because it was such a big change of characters and everything, all the news crews were there, all the cameras were there, the crowd went all the way, you could not see. I was up there doing my thing and I could feel the wig slipping. I could feel it, and I'm like, I got 2 choices here, and my brain is doing my lines and doing this and everything else. I'm going, what would be worse? Kind of hold this up here, or the whole thing slip off on national, on television. And I could see my cast members in front of me going, take your hand down, move your hand. And I'd try, and then I'd feel it, and I'm like, I can't. So the whole thing, I'm like holding my hair on. And I was devastated. I was mortified. I felt like I had let down the whole entire park. And I was mad. I was angry too, because there were so many concepts for makeup that would have been really awesome. And all they did was shade my face. And I had a character partner called Barnacus, which was a monkey. And honestly, his makeup was better than mine. It was so sad for me. But I'm like, you know what? If this is good enough for you, I'm just going to go out there and do my job and do my best.
I do remember that first night. And I remember looking up and seeing when that wig was slipping, but you caught it. But you didn't miss a beat. You kept going. You rolled with it. It's still, you worked with what you had and you made it work.
That was one thing that I learned really quickly, that they give you a little bit of information and they love to change things up on you.
Yes,
so
especially the opening show.
Would be like, okay, well this time we're going to have, a puff of smoke and then some music, and you're just going to gesture for everybody to enter the park. Do my thing, puff of smoke, no music, silence. Everybody looking at me, and I'm like, be gone! And I'm like, okay, I'm out.
I always heard the rumor in that first season, there was a concept where you and the Overlord were going to have some kind of a fight for the opening show.
Yes, he was supposed to be on stage, and then the witch voice, and then they wanted to zip line me in from the top of the building. And how are you with heights? I'm like, not so good, not so good. You know, character development. It is. A lot of it is super improv, and it will change based on your crowd. It will change based on your night.
What was the story behind getting the role of the witch?
I got a call, and it was, "Are you coming back next season?" And that was strange because nobody had called me. I'd already gotten the rehire letter and everything, but this was pretty early on. And I said, "Well, yeah, of course. Well, we want you to come in and talk to us." I had a meeting with Kelly, and Kelly said, "Listen, when I tell you, you can't tell anybody else. It's a concept that we're kicking around. Well, we're going to have a new character come in, and it's going to be a witch, and it's going to be, they're going to overthrow the Overlord." And I said, "Well, that's really cool, but why am I here? Yeah, honestly, seriously, why am I here? Not. And they said, "Well, we want you to audition for the witch." And I'm like, "What?" I kind of like spaced back to my first ever audition of like, why not try this out? Why not do something? Try audition out, but it's not gonna do anything. Of course, I heard it was a witch character, so I went and got my own witch garb and, came up with a little glass pendant. Just came in and auditioned, like, what kind of witch do you want? And they were like, "Ooh, Devil Wears Prada." So I instantly insulted the entire panel. "Why would you peasants call me here?" And they said, "Oh no, that's a little too much." So, I toned it down and did more Wizard of Oz, Glinda the Good Witch, and they're like, "Oh no, we like the other one better." Being a sign language interpreter, I know body language, and I know eye contact, and I know how to put people in space when they're not there. So I said, and you are going to spill that $5 coffee all over yourself." And I did the laugh, and I just saw the reaction like, oh. And they're like, "Can you do that all night long?" And I'm like, "Did you ever go to Silver Scream and hear, 'Beware!' 10,000 times a night?" Yeah, I can keep it up. Didn't really hear anything until Fury. Fury was new to the park. They were building Fury, and they had a humongous event in Harmony Hall. Ice sculptures, catered, all out. And they called in haunt actors to, just kind of like walk across the stage. And so, we're all backstage, and I don't know who it was, but one of the, the big wigs for Scarowinds was coming up, and he came up and he was talking to the crowd.
"You better get your act together because your boss is coming to town, and I hear she can be a real witch." All right.
And I went, oh, but I couldn't say anything because nobody else knew. We come backstage and we're all sitting hanging out. Somebody said to Monica, how could they call somebody a witch? And Monica goes, "I'm going to tell you. But if you post about it, you talk about it, you're going to be fired." Yeah, there's going to be a new character. She's a witch. She's going to overthrow the Overlord. She's sitting right over there. And she pointed to me, and I'm like, I got it, no way. And so everybody's looking around me going, "Where? Where?" I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Thank them for the rest. I love my job as I'm leaving. That's how it was at home. Monica and Kelly didn't go home and tell everybody else, and just took care of everybody. So, it wasn't until years later I found out, who else had auditioned and would have made a fantastic witch. So I don't know why I got picked over somebody else, because they would have been fantastic too. They knew something about me that I didn't know about myself. Lilith is an egomaniac. She owned her power. She didn't apologize to anybody. When that character came on, Jenny went away and Lilith came out, and Lilith would say and do things that Jenny would never do.
You were the first icon outside of the Overlord to be there at Scarowinds. You had some big shoes to fill, and there were people that may or may not have been supportive of it.
Hated me!
So let's talk about how it was coming into this role, being the icon and all the struggles.
I could never have done this if it wasn't for Dave, the Overlord. If it wasn't for his support, if it wasn't for his encouragement. I remember when we were doing the audio And I'm like just trying to remember the lines and say the words. And he's like, Jen, I'm right here. Look at me and say it to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, got it. It was hard. It was really hard because the backstory was that I had been lying in wait for 5 years to take him over. So when people who worked on came up to me and they said, you know, is that true? I would answer, yeah, that's a story, that's true. But they thought that I had actually been plotting to get this role for like the last 4 years. Other characters who were core characters on Scarowinds were like, I could never have done what you did. I couldn't have, you know, he's our friend, he's our icon. How do you think you're even, you know, anywhere near what you need to be to fill those shoes? Other people told me on Scarowinds that we knew you and liked you, and if it was anybody else, you would have left home crying that first night and never come back. Trust me, there were nights when certain factions in the park, it was pitted the witch against the Overlord. There were shirts made in the gift store. Team Witch, Team Overlord. Dave and I would have fun with it because we would have kids coming up to me and say, the Overlord said he's going to drop a house on you. And I'm like, go find the Overlord and tell him he's the Overlord. He's over. So they'd run all around the park because we couldn't be in the same part of the park at the same time. He had to be at opposite ends. So these kids all night long would be running from one end to the other. The Overlord said... we just have fun. And this was the thing was, they're like, oh, you're doing a television interview. Give us no clue what we would be saying. They just, throw you into the deep end and you would say stuff and, you just come up with stuff. And then, there was one time one interview and there was like, oh, well, his monsters just adored him and it's disgusting. He had loyalty and, he was just weak and pathetic.
What was his weakness?
His compassion for his creatures. The kindness he showed them sometimes is not tolerable.
And I'm saying these terrible things about the Overlord, and the Overlord comes out. He's like, I heard what you said, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was put on the spot. I didn't know what to say. In retrospect, I think if they had given Dave and us the opportunity to write this story ourselves, then it would have been epic. I didn't understand how much Dave respected the character until he overthrew the witch and got power back. I came into the park and I was Millie, and he said, did you see my costume? And on his new prosthetic is a huge scar. And he said, I made sure that they put that huge scar on there. That is from the witch. That is from the battles that we had, that they never showed, that were never part of the storyline. Professionalism and chivalry from accounts from other people defended me, defended my character because other people were coming at her. That first season was really hard.
Going back to opening shows, we kind of talked about your first season already, but the other two seasons, the other two opening shows you had, I know the next one, which would be 2015, that was you, me, and Sammy up there.
Your fears are here!
That was the first year of the big cauldron.
Yes, and then throwing the things into you guys would be handing me things and I would be putting them into the cauldron, and they represented the different areas. I did have the smoke stick.
Yeah.
I remember this because one night I missed grabbing it, and because it's like a full fire extinguisher came out, it rocketed off the stage behind me. So from that point on, they had Sammy back there keeping a hand on it just in case. That was, but you guys could not be seen. So I remember in rehearsals they saw your hat and they were like, Leroy, we see your hat.
Oh my gosh, I had so many notes.
Yeah.
I was just having fun. And
yeah, always seek feedback. I'm like, how is it? Do you want me to change anything? No, you're fine. right. You know, you just hope they're telling the truth, and you know, it's working for everybody. I mean, we always got really good like feedback and crowds that would sit and watch. I mean, I loved it when CoasterForce was like mingled in there and would, you know, rile up the crowd and everything like that. I mean, the music too. I cannot hear that Bon Jovi song without getting a cold chill up my spine, knowing that any minute I'm going to climb those 5 stairs. And it's surreal. You get up there, you do it, and then you come up, and it's like you've disassociated for a few minutes, and you're like, okay, with you, were we good? You know, just phenomenal. You know, changing the set. So the first year was the Overlord set with a clock tower. And then finally, you know, it turned all witchy. We had the creepy trees and the big, it was epic.
And what was the last opening show you did? I can't remember exactly.
The last one was...
Their friends track them by their screams. Make them wish they'd never met our foul, ferocious beings. Mortals, hear this warning now. If you are filled with fear, leave while you can before it's too late, because all you fear is here.
That was the one where we would say all of the different areas, you know, Dark Harvest and the pumpkins, and each kind of like the one with the cauldron, it would be calling out the different areas, and then they would all react to that.
Subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss an around culture.